at some point during the experience, their eyes need to get big and they need to go, wow. But if you're talking about a weekly sales meeting, hit your goal, get accomplished what you're trying to get done, and make sure that everybody walks away feeling good about it. Maybe they don't have a great time. You're not laughing the whole time, but feeling good about what happened during that time is, I think, important.
Welcome to another episode of Innovation Insights, where we dive deep into the minds shaping the future of industries through innovation, creativity, and groundbreaking research. We believe that innovation happens in all aspects of life. I am your host, Dr. Eulanda Sanders. On this episode of Innovation Insights, we are joined by Dr. Dede Hamm, a dynamic leader and educator who has dedicated more than 3 decades to transforming the meetings and events industry. As a certified meeting planner, Dede brings 15 years of hands-on experience planning large-scale events, followed by 15 years teaching future event professionals in higher education. Today, Dede is the founder of Meetings Academy, a resource built to make meeting and event planning accessible, efficient, and stress-free. Her mission is simple yet powerful: to help individuals and organizations plan exceptional meetings without the overwhelm. Through Meetings Academy, she shares the tools, insights, and strategies professionals need to save time, reduce stress, and focus on what truly matters. In our conversation, Dede shares her journey from industry to academia, the lessons learned from 30 years of planning and teaching, and her vision for empowering others to plan with confidence and creativity. Join us as we explore how innovation in the meetings and events industry starts with knowledge, preparation, and passion, and how Dede continues to lead the way in helping others plan better, stress less, and get their time back. Dede, welcome to the Innovation Insights podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, thank you. We've known each other for
A
ooh,
minute.
many.
I started in 17. Yeah, 2017.
Oh my gosh, so 8, wow, 8 years. Oh my gosh, time, yeah. I remember my mother told me once that time starts to go faster the older you get. 8 years, wow. I also had the pleasure of being on your doctoral committee, and so that was just, I learned so much about the events area and from your experience. I'm so thrilled for us to talk about that today.
Right? Yeah, thank you again for serving. That was amazing and very helpful.
My pleasure. I think I learned more about everything being on dissertation committees than any of the students do get from me. I I make a few suggestions and that's about it. Oh, okay, so you have more than 30 years of experience in meetings and events and 15 years planning and 15 years teaching. Drew you to the events industry?
So I think my story is very similar to a lot of people that end up in events. It just happens. I knew I wanted to help people, but I knew I didn't want to go into the healthcare industry because that was not something I was very interested in. So hospitality management, when I was in high school, I started understanding what that was and decided to major in it. And a position that came up as an internship opportunity at the school I was at was the University of Central Florida, was at Disney. And between that, a couple of other jobs doing events, I realized that was really what I was pretty excited about.
Okay, so how was Disney? Was it really the happiest place in the world?
So it is. I will tell you that when you work there, they kill the dream just right away because you go and do your orientation training, all of those things, and it's all backstage and characters not in their costumes, and they be walking around with just half of their costume on. And so the dream gets, the magic goes down just a little bit, but I think Disney is very good, at least they were when I was there, at making things magical for guests. So it was a great training. I always joke that it's probably the best training I've ever had.
Oh, yeah, I can just imagine. I can just imagine. Wow. Wow. You were a meeting planner. And could you just tell us what a meeting planner does? No one even knows. Or they might be a meeting planner and not even know it too.
Oh, I think a lot of people are, quite honestly. Meeting planners are event planners who really just specialize in meetings. Yeah, and it sounds very simple, but it is. There's in the event world, there's a little bit of divisiveness over what being an event planner is versus a meeting planner. To me, they're exactly the same thing. It just depends on the type of event that you're working on. So a lot of meeting planners work for corporate offices or they work for hotels and their specialty is to work with corporations that are having meetings, conventions, conferences, trade shows, that kind of thing. There's a whole other aspect to event planning that specializes more in social events, celebratory events, those kinds of things. So I tended towards the less social. I was in one of my very first jobs. I worked for a hotel and I did the event planning for the hotel and learned very quickly I did not like weddings. Let's just say it like that. They were fun to a point. It's just that there was so much buildup and they had so much fun planning and planning, and then it was over, and seeing those brides disappointed that all of the fun was over was just I was like, "Give me a trade show anytime."
That's funny that you say that because on the fashion side, which is my main background, I learned
Right.
early on too, I did not like brides. I did not wanna work with brides.
Brides' moms.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even get that far into it with the moms or anything. It was the brides and their dresses and then making dresses and making bridesmaids dresses and the
Right.
bodies and changing bodies over the period of time and
Oh,
all that, and just
I
drama and
gotcha.
non-payments and all types of crazy things. I'm with you. I'm with you that, moms would have been like I said, I only did 1 or 2 weddings and then out.
I'm out. Don't blame you. They're just tough.
They
It
are.
takes a special person to work in that industry. It really does, and I learned quickly it was not me.
Yeah. So you worked with corporate events and then you moved into becoming an educator. So what was that transition like?
It was interesting. I did a couple of guest speaking gigs beforehand and really enjoyed being in the classroom. I think the toughest thing was figuring out, okay, I've done this for 15 years. I should be able to teach it. It doesn't, and realizing it doesn't come that easily. It is a lot of planning. It's a lot of strategy. It's a lot of taking it back down to the process
Mhm.
and trying to explain the process in a way that the students actually will listen. And so it was learning that, and that took a few years to figure it out. My first teaching stint was actually at a culinary school or a culinary program. It was within a community college, and I was the lone hospitality instructor. And so most of these students didn't even want to take the hospitality business classes they were required to take. And so I learned very quickly how to, especially at community college, how to communicate in a way that when they don't wanna be there, they'll still pay attention and still realize that it really is important even if it's not your cup of tea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of project management, organization, and financials in this
It's
sector
very
of
much
the
so.
industry. Yeah. Yeah. And
Even in restaurants, you have to understand the business side. Even if you don't want to do the business side, you still need to understand it so you don't get taken advantage of as a chef. Yeah.
so I would say in every industry, you have to understand the business part and the numbers.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Gosh.
Yeah.
What was some of your defining moments and joys out of becoming an educator?
I think seeing the students succeed after the fact, I've heard back from students after they've graduated and they come back and say, I've really enjoyed your classes. And now I'm starting to put that into action on my jobs. I've gotten a couple of emails from students saying, I'm so glad I took this class or whichever class it was, because now I'm using it on my job and doing those realistic activities that you had us do actually really helps. So I think maybe it's the feedback from the students and seeing them be successful is really exciting. Hearing from your colleagues that the students are doing well, that's another one. Seeing the students just get into it too, because event planning can be very dynamic and it can be a lot of fun. And one of the things we did when I was at the University of Arkansas was an annual fundraising event for our program. And so it was a 2 semester long. It took a year to plan this event. And so in the spring, the students would just get into the big picture, strategic, really broad strokes of what the event could be. And so seeing them start to see what really needs to go into planning an event, that's probably the hardest, by far the hardest class and experience as a teacher, but you do get a lot out of it, seeing the students, and at the end of the event, them being so proud of what they've done and being proud of them.
Yeah.
Sure.
And for them to actualize an event and implement it and then evaluate it and having that to go on their resume and to their portfolio, their experience is gonna that's invaluable. Wow.
Yes. Yeah, and they learn very quickly if they like events or not, so
And it's better to do that within your educational experience than to get onto a job and realize, "Oh, no, this is not."
that's what I would tell this is a safe space, as safe as it's gonna get to plan an event, so try it and figure it out.
So agree. So, if you reflect on the evolution of meetings, how has it changed? And, what is it like now? Because now we also have this whole technology revolution that we're going through. Is that impacting meetings and events? And
Very much. Yeah, it's actually been, I think, really beneficial. We had this little blip. I don't know if you remember in 2020, a little blip that kind of hurt the meetings and events industry. Yes, I was
oh
again
yeah,
in the
there
middle.
was that little thing that happened.
Yeah, I was in the middle of trying to do research on events and it just dropped away. But anyway,
It did.
I don't think it was so detrimental to the event industry for the time span that people couldn't gather. Like during that time, it rocked everybody's world, but it also did what I consider a reset, right? When we gather, what do we really need to do? So it's gotten, and this is something that I always try to push with students is start with what you're trying to accomplish. So, for example, for the fundraiser, it was, are we trying to get stakeholders together to talk to each other? Are we trying to, is our goal this year to actually raise a certain amount of money? Is it to all of these different things that should playing around that, just always playing around that. And I think that's what COVID has done for the meetings industry as well as we couldn't meet for a year or a year and a half, or we couldn't meet in person for a year and a half. So if we are going to gather, let's make it worthwhile. Let's make sure that people are getting what they need out of it, that they're enjoying it, that it's worth the money, the time, the travel, all of these things. And I think that reset's been very beneficial. And now with AI coming into it, it has helped planners immensely in that you can feed, I don't know, past agendas of a conference or a trade show that you've done into AI and put in the audience participation, like how many people have gone to each session, and really develop a new agenda based on what people in the past have enjoyed, what's been well attended, what hasn't. And so I think technology has been COVID and the technology have been really great for the meetings industry.
That is so wonderful to hear that evolution and that take on it because I remember back in 2020 and every industry that I was involved with and and especially the programs that I had students and faculty working in was impacted extremely by the pandemic. Oh my goodness, everything that we do and that we're training people to go into. And there was this sense and this fear that people weren't going to want to come to in-person events ever again or
Right.
in-person meetings. And I think we found that's not true.
No, the event industry didn't just come back, it came back with a vengeance
Yeah.
because people were tired of being in home. They wanted to go to events, but they wanted to get really something serious out of it. It's not like a habit anymore to go to an annual conference or to go to a trade show and just go through the motions. Now it's, I really, if I'm going to do this, I want to get something out of it. And that's pushed the meetings industry and the planners to really change how they're doing things, which has been, I think, very beneficial.
That is very good.
Right.
Oh, I'm really excited about talking about Meetings Academy. You founded this to help make event planning and meeting planning more accessible. What was the inspiration behind launching it?
So it was a couple of things. It was something that I'd always wanted to do is to provide resources to other meeting planners. As a teacher, professor, instructor, students were always asking those questions on the side or just within an email. Even after they left the university or college, they would say, "Hey, I'm into this. What do you think?" And it was when you're a meeting planner, and this is something that meeting planners don't say a lot about, but you tend to be a resource to people, even other meeting planners. Everybody knows a group of meeting planner, like within a group of meeting planners, everybody knows everybody and everybody has a specialty. And so the thought was Meetings Academy is that meeting planner you go to when you're looking to try to figure out a challenge, an issue, or something you've just never run into. And not everybody can find that person or can't afford to necessarily pay a consultant or hire a professional planner to do what they need to do. like I said before, a lot of people just end up in meeting planning. If you think about in companies, it's usually like an executive assistant ends up running the sales meeting, or in a college, it's the administrative office that ends up putting on the annual conference or the monthly meetings of faculty. Or so it's a lot of people end up doing meeting and event planning, not having a background in it, not having regular resources or someone to find that information. So that's where Meetings Academy came from. And also just I know a lot of people want to grow and learn, especially event planners, and they can't stop what they're doing to take a 16-week regimented semester of class. If anybody can, it's meeting planners. There's no way. So being able to offer some of the same curriculum and things that people might want to get out of a college class without having to go to college. One of my classes that was really popular was the event safety class. For my thesis was all about event safety and security and those kinds of things. And that class was extremely popular because people want to learn about how to plan safe events and they want to hear about what's happened in the past, which forces us not to do those things again. And some of those horrific situations at events that just have come because of negligence or just happenstance. That's the kind of things that everyday meeting planners, full-time meeting planners want to know. And so it's trying to glean those things from what I've taught and what I've learned into Meetings Academy to offer them to people that actually need them or want to grow.
I love that you're taking also your practical experience, as you said, but also your dissertation experience, and then actualizing that into curriculum for the public. And so you're offering classes, and do you do
They're
consult?
coming. Yes, we're working on building some of those classes. Another thing we're looking at is building into perhaps working with professional organizations to offer micro credentials too.
Oh,
There's some, I would say, opportunities in the meeting planning industry, especially around event safety. We kind of joke, pop-up tents. Have you ever seen these before? Those portable tents that you take out to a sporting event or whatever. A lot of people like to use those at events, and anybody who has a background in event safety will not use those in an event, and so they turn into kites. If there's the slightest breeze, we call them kites in the industry, they just take off like a kite, and it becomes a
yeah,
potentially dangerous situation.
yeah,
So it's thing like maybe a little bit of education on that level and the fact that players have a responsibility to keep guests safe, and so
yeah.
that reminder is good too.
Yeah, my former department, we had a couple of those that we used for events, and it was like sandbags. Do you have like really heavy sandbags? Do you have really heavy sandbags to go up these?
And that only works, for so long, and for probably 75% of situations, those things are fine. It's that 25% that you're
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Oh my goodness. Thinking about your dissertation, what were some key takeaways from your dissertation that might be helpful for our audience?
So the dissertation was based on event safety and security, really focused around security personnel. So the way that I try to explain it to people that weren't in academia and didn't want to read an entire dissertation, the study was really looking into why do event security personnel do what they do, right? If you go to a concert, if you look around and see who security is, it's usually somebody in a black or yellow t-shirt that says security. Likely if they've been paid, they haven't been paid a whole lot of money, or they get to enjoy the concert for free, or they get free food. You need people there in case there's an emergency, right? And you need a lot of people there if it's a big concert. So it was really diving into why do they do what they do. And the research found that they do it for the right reasons. The bulk of the people that are doing event security are doing it to try to keep people safe. There were a few that were doing it for the money or doing it for the free concert or whatever it was. So it was reassuring that the bulk of the people were doing it. And really what we were trying to get out of it was how to develop a way for future event planners, meeting planners, concert planners, live event planners to talk to candidates about like through the hiring process and then maybe again through the training process. We didn't get that far into it with the thesis, but really beginning to start the conversation of, okay, making sure you're hiring the people for the right reason. And if they're doing it for the right reason, making sure that you're training them so that there is a situation that they do the right thing. Yeah, because there's a lot of research into what happens in an emergency and hiring the right attitude first is gonna get you a lot further. Yeah.
That makes sense. That sounds like a consulting opportunity for you to consult with different organizations and businesses as they hire. Yeah.
No, no.
Um,
Yeah, Event Safety Alliance is one of my favorite professional organizations, and their focus is on live events and live event security and safety. So it is all around concerts, theater, those kinds of things, because there have been some incidents and they want to make sure none of those happen ever again.
yeah. Well, thank you for doing that research too, because that's always a big concern is the safety of people and when gathering. We want to gather, but we need to be able to gather safe in so many different ways. And there's so many aspects of what cannot be safe. Wow.
Yeah.
I just love this. I so love that you're giving highlight also to this because many of the things that we do, if we're doing it right, people take it for granted.
Oh, yeah, very much
Yeah.
so.
And you want that, but also there needs to be a recognition that this is a discipline. This is part of the industry. This is part of the world. There are people that work on these areas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and especially I think safety and security is one. Meeting planners tend to get tied up in the experience, which is what they're supposed to do, right? When you design, you're designing for meeting that goal, making sure the guests are having a great experience. It's like you said, there's this other thing that's just kind of lurking along as a shadow. Make sure people don't get hurt, And so it sometimes does get just assume that everything's going to be fine because, like I said, 75% of the time, nothing's going to go wrong. It really isn't. But you don't want to get burnt by something happening that you didn't plan for.
We've used the word planning a lot in this
Yes.
conversation. And so, what are some skills that you and advice you would give to educators when preparing students to go into the meetings and events industry?
So something that I've learned recently coming back out of academia, I think you can probably understand this. When you're in academia, you're in your own little bubble in a lot of ways. One of the things that I've realized, and it's because I've been helping a little bit with a company with some trade show services, is that event planning and project management are almost exactly the same thing. There are a lot of elements that are the same. It's just that we're planning specific projects, right? It's projects that are all around this event. And so one of the things that I would recommend, and I'm assuming a lot of professors and teachers are already doing this, is integrating some project management basics into event planning. Even if they're not going to become event planners, if they're in hospitality or fashion or chemistry, whatever it is, feel like people could really use some project management skills. Realizing that there are stakeholders that are involved, everybody has something that they need to do in that event and getting it into a process that that is probably the most helpful thing that I think teachers could do for students is teaching the process of planning through project management. So,
You just said another one of my favorite P's, process. So you gotta plan, you gotta have a process, you gotta manage the project.
you're right. I like process. If I default to anything, it's going to be getting into the zone when designing processes. That I know it's one of those weird things, but I love getting into the process part.
No, I'm a process person too. And not and yeah, I think we're probably on the same page that when you have a process, you have it organized and defined and communicated, then everyone's on the same page. And you
Right.
can yeah. But
Yeah, I heard someone somewhere say that the more that you have it planned, the more creativity you can make. Seriously, I know. Is it like the more rule? I think the quote was the more rules there are, the more creative you can be. And I always thought that it's such a thinker kind of, but you start thinking, you really can. You can be more creative if you've got the process down.
okay, you think about okay, a cake. If you have the process down, and this is probably why box cakes became, for home bakers, because you didn't have to think about there was a formula. And then you have that base cake, then you can decorate any way because the process is the mix, eggs, water, oil, whatever. You bake it. That's you don't have to think about that anymore. And then you can do whatever on top of that you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it takes that part out of your brain too. Once you've got the process down, You don't have to think about it every time. This is event planning. Like, I got so good at writing things down because I knew that I could not fill my brain up with anything else. So I thought about it for a little while, wrote the process down, and then didn't ever think about it again because the process was already determined. It made my life so much easier and to be creative, like I said. So,
Yeah. I think that is so important. And what I find too is sometimes when organizations prefer not to have a process defined or individuals, then it gives leeway to just doing things any willy-nilly way and some of the fairness is so sometimes there's resistance to that, but I
sure.
agree having students be able to understand that you're planning, but you're processing and documenting. And now with AI, also, there's so many tools out there to help you with that process. So it's really
Oh,
good.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. That was one of the things just right before I left the university, we were just starting. There's actually an AR program, probably one of many at this point, but PCMA, which is Professional Convention Managers Association, they have one called Spark IT, and it is designed just for meeting planners. And you can go in and write content, you can go in and build agendas. Like, there's just some really great stuff out there, and it's exactly what you need. That's what AI should be doing, is helping you with your processes.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's how I use it. Ooh, boy.
Same.
You touched on this a little bit that sometimes in academia, we are a little bit removed from, excuse me, my goodness, from the industry and what's happening. So, how can colleges and universities connect the theoretical part that they're teaching and working or studying with the realities of what is actually hard that they're in industry? Any thoughts on that?
Couple, yeah. So one of the things that I don't know of a single event or hospitality educational program now that doesn't require an internship. It, a student can't graduate out of a program without getting some work experience wherever they need to do it in the hospitality industry, whatever works with their schedule and their passions, those things. Most of them are pretty substantial. It's 6 to 800 hours of work, if not more, in the industry, which if you build that as a class into the program, that makes it much easier for the students to get their resume built and those kinds of things. But specifically from an events background or an events experience, it's making them do events. One way or the other, they have to volunteer, they have to do it as part of a class, whatever it is, just getting them out there, trying different kinds of events. Because, for example, in the university setting, we had a lot of students who thought they wanted to be wedding planners. I've already shared my thoughts on being a wedding planner. So one of the things that we would always say, and we actually had a local partner who would do this for the students, is have them come in and work for a semester on planning some weddings that were coming up. That would help them real quickly decide if they wanted to be a wedding planner or not. Our partner was just so good at what she did, though, that a lot of the students, oh, this is just the best. I'm like, do you understand how many years she has been working on this? To get it to the point where it's so magical because she has her processes down. She knows what she's doing. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, yes, it's beautiful and wonderful, but you need to figure these things out. Working with a partner who's so good at it is going to help them. But we would, just as part of classes, help with other kinds of events on campus. We would encourage students and share opportunities to try out different kinds of events, because you might think that you don't want to work corporate events. You think that sounds boring, and you go and do one, and you're like, "Oh my goodness, this is exactly what I want to do." And I had a student that got into medical events. She got very passionate about doing healthcare events, and it was as part of her internship. So I think it's really just getting in there and trying it. A lot of people will welcome volunteers. There's always volunteer opportunities in every community for a 5K or a fundraiser or whatever it is. We always encourage our students to just try as much as possible. And then we actually required it in classes too, to encourage those that might think that they don't want to volunteer, or that they're maybe a little more introverted and don't want to put themselves out there. So we'll give you opportunities, don't worry, and we'll do it in a safe way. But we really encourage you to just go try it,
Yeah.
and working with somebody who knows what they're doing.
Oh, yeah. Those are great examples. That is and you mentioned the medical event. They probably have pretty good budgets, huh?
They do. Actually, when I worked, one of the hotels that I worked at, we hosted a lot of doctors and nurses. They have to do continuing education. to keep their certifications and licenses and all those things. And so there would be it probably doesn't happen as much anymore. Pharmaceutical companies would host these because they knew doctors needed to have them. So they would find an educator to come in and do the class and then also host a dinner and those kinds of things. And yes, they were fabulous events to plan and work with. And those doctors, they were really fun to work with.
That's cool. That's cool. Event planning isn't for the faint at heart. It can be stressful and complex. And so, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people making when organizing meetings, and how can those mistakes be avoided?
So probably, and there's a couple of different ways to look at it, I think, in my opinion. If you think about a wedding, I know we've talked about this a little bit, but if you think about a wedding and what people want to plan with a wedding is it's a celebration. They don't a lot of times like what is the goal of hosting a wedding reception? That never really gets brought up. And so a lot of the things that get planned may not be what the guests actually care about. You know what I mean? Do you remember the last wedding you went to, what the color of the napkins were? Probably not. You know what I mean? Like a lot of time is spent on things that maybe necessarily aren't that important when you think about what is the end goal. So we used to have this conversation in one of my classes about weddings and what do you think is the goal of a wedding reception? And the conversations were just interesting because you could see people's backgrounds and experiences with weddings were vastly different because everybody has a different idea on what they think the point is. And if you don't, I think that's the number one thing. If you don't go back to what is the point? What are we doing this for? What is the goal? What are we trying to get out of it? That can lead to some issues. Generally, if you have a good time at a wedding, that's about all we're really trying to get out of it for most people. It's a celebration. It's to get your family together, have a good time. That is the goal. If it's anything else, you need to be thinking a little bit differently. If you think about corporate events, it goes the other way. So they tend to not think about as much the experience of the guest. They're so focused on we need to increase the sales professionals' knowledge on this subject so that they can go out and make more sales, right? So they're very focused on the goal. In the corporate world, they tend to be there is this is a specific thing that we need to get done. So the experience sometimes goes out the window. Does the room look nice? Are they going to be comfortable? Are they going those kinds of things? As a planner, you help the client to remember, hey, maybe we should feed them. Maybe we should like make sure there's water in the room. Maybe we should give them a bathroom break. You know what I mean? Like those kinds of things. And I'm being ridiculous, but it is. There tends to be, I don't want to say two different versions of it, but you could see how depending on what you're do with an event, what you're planning can get focused on the wrong things sometimes. And maybe not even the wrong things, just not including the entire experience. So one of the things that I always try to work with people that are asking me questions about what should I do with this event, if it's a student or if it's a friend or if it's a colleague, is really just go back and say, if you put yourself in the guest's shoes, what do you want them to feel? What are you wanting them to do, experience? All of that stuff should really be in your mind the whole time so that they come out of it feeling like they accomplished what they needed to accomplish, feeling good about the organization, the family, whatever it is. And, in general, having a positive experience. So it's, like I said, it just depends on the kind of event. But it always comes back to what are you trying to accomplish? What is the goal? What are we trying to do here or not? Because one of my pet peeves, and you probably feel this, is sometimes we have meetings because we're supposed to have meetings. And this actually gives me an eye tick sometimes because I think of monthly faculty meetings. I think of weekly check-ins. Sometimes it's really just a habit or it's we've always done this. And that's going back to that whole idea of COVID. That's something that broke the event industry in a lot of ways is just because we've done this the whole time doesn't like, we don't have to do that anymore, and there's still some situations that are struggling. I think academia might be one of them when it comes to, "Let's have a meeting to have a meeting." Go back to what's the point? Like, if you're trying to get business done and it's a vote, just vote. Keep the meeting short. Yeah, that one still bothers me, and I'm on a crusade at some point in my life to stop from meeting just to meet.
I'll jump on that crusade with you. Yeah, and academia is the worst. We will meet just to meet. We may not have anything to
Yeah.
talk about or meeting
Oh,
agenda,
yes.
but everyone,
Yeah, annual conferences.
yeah,
Yeah, like a trade show, like a professional association, they have an annual conference. There are a lot of reasons why they have that annual conference, and a lot of them revolve around building up the budget because you can make a lot of money on an annual conference from registration fees, but then also doing business. But then the rest of it, it's like, why is there a trade show? What are you trying to get out of the trade show? Is it just information? Then maybe we don't need to have a trade show. Maybe we just have meetings. There's a lot of things that, like, maybe we don't just do it out of habit. Maybe we sit down and think about this and whether or not we really need to meet or
mhm.
change the meeting.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or if it's that human connection that you need,
Right.
then let's do something else versus have sitting.
Like maybe we go out to lunch,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
or maybe we have a round table instead of a faculty meeting. There's a lot of, yeah, there are a lot of times that, and there's some organizations more than others that struggle with this and they just have trouble letting go that Robert's Rules of Order. I get that in some time and some situations, you really need a very regimented way that meetings need to go. But if you don't need it, don't use it just because it's always been there.
Exactly. Having been a 4-H'er and I grew up on Robert's Rule of Law, I know it and I can implement it.
It is amazing. Don't get me wrong. Like that is a pride loves.
I do too. I
Yes.
do too because it's part of that process and everything. But you know what? If you don't need to meet, let's just not meet. I'll leave. But
Exactly. Could it have been an email?
so academia out there, those academic, I mean, I'm still an academic, but my goodness, it's interesting too. Just thinking about this shortening meetings sometimes because sometimes the thought is, oh, we need to meet an hour. Why?
No, no.
Yeah,
Very rarely do we need to be an hour. And you don't have to fill up the hour.
no.
One of the things that I love is people that have standing meetings. If you want to ensure people get things done quickly, stand in the room. Because especially if they need to have some kind of device with them, they'll be very quick to get out of there and make sure it gets done. So
That is I hadn't thought about that. That is really smart. Well, I remember at one point in my career when I was at Colorado State, I was advising students, and, yeah, at one point, I had 60 some advisees in my main program, and then I was a director for women's studies, so I had all the undergrads that were going through that, so there was 100 and some students. So I had that plus just all my other administrative and access,
I mean thing.
like almost 180 students I needed to get some advice to within a 6-week window before they registered for the next class. Yeah, I went to 15-minute advising appointments,
Yeah.
and it was efficient. I was all prepared, they were prepared. We didn't need 30-minute ones, and people were just like, "You're doing it in 15 minutes. I don't know how you do that." They're prepared.
Yeah, I switched. COVID helped because I did a little bit of advising, student advising while I was there at the university, and I switched to Teams too. Like I would have virtual meetings with them because I would share the plan right on the screen. They've got to look at it. Yeah. And they would be 15 minutes long, sometimes a little bit more if I knew that we had somebody that was having a challenge. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. Meetings is A too. I encourage that.
Yeah. What are some, like, low cost but high impact ideas that you can use to create meaningful experiences for attendees?
I think doing the number one would be doing the exercise of putting yourself in the guest's shoes from the start, from the first email that they're going to get or the first, however, they're going to find out about whatever meeting or event you're planning. Just doing that. I used to actually make the students close their eyes and put themselves into that situation. And this was for hospitality students, maybe like a little too creative for them. But I would make them close their eyes. It was like, we're going to talk about this fundraising event. What do you see? Just don't yell it out yet, but put your mind there. You're in the room with the guests. You are a guest. What are you feeling? What are you doing? Do you have a drink in your hand? Are you walking? Are you looking at something? All of these things. I think that's probably, and it's a skill that takes some practice, is just really thinking about that experience, putting yourself in their shoes from the second that they're going to find out about the event. Because if it's something that they need to fly in for, how are they getting from the airport to the venue? All of those things, really, if you put yourself as a guest, that can really help you plan because it gives you a more holistic viewpoint rather than getting into the things that you will have to plan at some point. Start with the goal and what the guest is going to experience. There are a lot of really good resources out there. I had actually written some down. If you're a meeting planner, PCMA is probably my favorite, one of my favorite professional associations. They do some really great stuff and they do focus on corporate. They have a magazine called Convene. Even if you're not a meeting planner, if you're at all involved in events, that is one of my, I mean, it's like the magazine I still get in print and I still sit down with it every month and read it. And also, they partner with the Events Industry Council to offer certifications for meeting professionals. So that's another thing to consider. They offer those resources too. If you wanted to get certified, you can do some of their continuing education as well. The Spark IT that I was talking about, there's a free plan with that right now as they're building it. They really want people to use the AI aspect of what they're offering to help plan events. And so it can, even if you're not comfortable using a lot of AI, it can at least get you started on thinking about some ideas. It'll write content for social media posts. It will, and just all kinds of things that you can use for events. Smart Meetings is another good magazine too for corporate and health, actually health associations or health groups. And then BizBash is probably my favorite website, and they offer a lot of inspirational. One of the things I used to confuse/excite my students about when we would talk about event planning is we would go on BizBash and look at the design. So they would focus on what's happening in events, especially corporate events and activations or product launches, those kinds of things. What's happening in New York, what's happening in LA, where these really big launches are happening, because that's what's going to happen in the Midwest 2 years from now. Like that's what's going to be trending 2 or 3 years from now. We do the same thing with the fashion. We would at, okay, what's going on Fashion Week? What are the colors that they're showing? And we would always look color of the year. It's like in 2 or 3 years, that's what you're going to be planning for your weddings, for linens, for flowers, like all of those things. And really, it's just what works for you. But you have to try a lot of different things to figure out what helps you plan. But I'll always go back to putting yourself in that guest's shoes and figure out, like, how do you want them to feel? What do you want them to do? Get out of it, like all of those things. That's probably the best way to start planning.
I love it. Empathy has been a theme that has really resonated throughout so many episodes of this podcast.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and what you're describing there is being empathetic to that experience of the guest is so important. And I love, how you mentioned looking at trends, and I'm gonna have to go on to BizBash, and
And so I love it. It's my favorite,
I that was one I had gone to PCMA and everything, but I had not heard of BizBash, so I'm gonna have to look that up. But I love,
especially for me.
yeah. Oh, thanks for sharing that. And just your thoughts too about forecasting trends, and to me, there's so many similarities between events, hospitality, and fashion. I know some people will probably turn off the podcast now that I've said that, but
I don't think so at all. I really don't. Yeah, and even meetings, a good meeting planner you're gonna wow your guests, right?
yeah.
So you need to have some idea as to what's trending. There's this quote/joke in the events industry, "You're only as good as your last event." You
Oh,
have to do
and
something each time to wow the guests. So if you're not looking at trends, if you're not looking at what people want, that empathy, what they're looking for, then you're not gonna give them that.
how do you personally define a great meeting?
It's kinda like we were just talking about. It's somebody who walks away thinking, "We got that done, and I feel good about it." It's not complicated. That's the thing, is if it's a big event that you're trying to do something huge, you want them to walk away going, "Wow." At some point during the experience, their eyes need to get big, and they need to go, "Wow." But if you're talking about a weekly sales meeting, hit your goal, accomplish what you're trying to get done, and make sure that everybody walks away feeling good about it. Maybe they'll have a great time. You're not laughing the whole time, but feeling good about what happened during that time is, I think, important.
Right. That's great. That's real good. At Innovation Insights, we have decided to take on the enemy, stagnation. Stagnation is the enemy of innovation. And so we are becoming stagnation fighters. And I have even labeled myself as a stagnation fighter. And so I want to start asking guests, what does fighting stagnation mean to you?
Whoa. Okay. This is something I think everybody struggles with. One of the things that's really come to light in entrepreneurship is how much you need to do stuff even when you don't want to. And it is probably the biggest challenge after being with organizations that just automatically what needs to get done, right? When you're an entrepreneur and trying to innovate, a lot of times it's just you have to do things to get things done. And I know that sounds so silly, but it's amazing that you're just like, it doesn't just happen. What do you mean it doesn't? This is a daily struggle, is just sitting where you are and not moving. You have to move. Fighting stagnation is moving. It's some kind of action. It is something that you just, like I said, there are times where you just need to move, take some kind of action, do something. Otherwise, you're just going to stay where you are. And that's what stagnant is. This is just the same.
I know. We don't like that. We don't like that. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, you just got to do.
Yeah.
And that's entrepreneurship. It's also not. So entrepreneurship for you, and then also being an event planner, two complex things too. And so
Yes.
just kudos to you for taking
Thank
both
you.
on because
Yeah. No, I admire what you're doing here because I know that you probably have to just constantly act all the time. Even when it's hard, you still have to act.
you do. You do. So thank you. Yeah. No, sometimes I'm like,
Much admiration, yes.
thank you. Thank you. Our last question is how to find innovation.
Innovation to me is creating and process together. So it is people love to create things, but actually making them happen is a whole different thing. So especially like I said, in the entrepreneurship world, you have to create and you have to have a process for everything. And so I think those things together are innovation. It's both of them together. That love that.
Oh, Dede, thank you for being here with us today. I so appreciate this. I've always enjoyed our conversations and just your
Yeah. Thank you for having me. This has been great.
oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. I'm just thrilled and I'm excited to watch Meetings Academy continue to grow and we will follow you and share out what you're doing and things like that and probably have you back again later on as you launch more parts of the business.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
And so the best way to get a hold of you is through your website, Meetings Academy, is that correct?
It's meetings academy. Yeah.
Nice and simple and straightforward.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, to our guests, thank you for joining this inspiring conversation with Dr. Dede Hamm, who really is truly an innovator in the meetings and events industry. Please make sure that you follow her work at meetingsacademy.com and connect with her on LinkedIn. And if you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, please subscribe and comment on the podcast. I can't tell you that truly helps us continue to bring conversations like this to you. Again, follow Dee Dee's work and all of her entrepreneurial innovations. Connect with us on social media and visit the innovationsandinsights.com website for resources, upcoming episodes, and ways to engage with the Innovation Insights community. Thank you for tuning in and keep innovating, keep dreaming, and keep making a difference.